Good evening, members, and welcome to this evening's full council. I'm Councillor Diana Garrett, Chairman of the Council, and I will be chairing the meeting this evening. This meeting is being webcast via the Council's YouTube channel. I'd like to welcome all those in attendance and all those watching the meeting online. We're not expecting a fire alarm this evening. However, in the event of an alarm, please leave via the fire exits and assemble in the car park. Please can I remind everyone in the chamber to ensure they have their mobile phones switched to silent to avoid any disruptions to this evening's business. This meeting is scheduled for 3 hours. I would be grateful if everyone could ensure they keep their speeches concise and to the issue being considered. If members wish to speak this evening, please could you indicate by clearly raising your hand. I will now proceed to the first item of business, agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies for absence from the following councillors: Councillor Courtauld, Councillor Finch, Councillor Rajiv, Councillor Thorogood, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Wrench, Councillor Wright and Councillor Alt. Are there any further apologies to note? No, thank you very much. We will proceed to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this evening? If so, please can you state the item and the nature of your interest? No? Thank you. Thank you, members. We will proceed to agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. I'd like to confirm that we are asking members to approve the minutes of the meeting of full council held on Monday, the 11th of December 2023, which have been circulated to all members and published on the council's website. Please can I have a proposer to approve the minutes as an accurate record of the meeting held on the 11th of December 2023? Thank you, Councillor Butland. And could I have... Thank you very much, Councillor Tom Cunningham. The minutes have been moved and seconded as an accurate record. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. All those against, please indicate. The minutes are approved. I will now sign the minutes. Thank you. Thank you, members. We will now proceed to agenda item 4, public question time. Members, but we have no registered speakers for this evening's meeting, so we can now proceed to agenda item 5, announcements and statements from myself and Leader of the Council. Since the last meeting of Council in December, I have attended a number of engagements, including a visit to 2 sites of Braintree Area Food Bank, Sybil Headingham and Braintree. Staff and volunteers have been working exceptionally hard to provide this important service, which has seen a rise in the number of users during the cost of living crisis. I also had the pleasure of attending the annual Jack Petchey Awards ceremony and the 25th birthday celebration together with Councillor Walters. I also hosted my Christmas reception and service at Causeway House and St Peter's Church, and I was delighted to have the opportunity to reconnect with the people from the various organisations I have visited and enjoy a festive sausage roll from the Plaza Cafe. A full list of my engagements I've attended since the last meeting will be published on the Council's website. Thank you, members. I would now like to invite Councillor Graham Butland, Leader of the Council, to make any announcements. Councillor Butland.
Madam Chairman, before I make an announcement, could I seek your indulgence and to ask Councillor Annette Bowers-Flint to introduce a short video regarding the community gardens, which I think members may find of interest.
Thank you, yes. Thank you very much. Councillor Bowers-Flint.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, members. I felt it was really important for you to see this very short video, and it is a short video, I promise. It's Richard Moss is the guy that you're looking at there, and he has done the most amazing project in Witham on a community garden. The community garden, as you will all recall, not only provides things for people to do, but it also enhances people's mental health. It does all sorts of things. And I think this video just shows you exactly how far and how good they do. So I thought it was important for all members to see this. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowles-Flint.
Here today is just overseeing a little bit of the community garden project, which you can see behind me. So essentially the whole thing was set up, we started digging in August, and it just came out of an idea. One day somebody said, oh, there's a bit of dead grass up at the end here, not being used at the end of the car park, and we said, well, could we set up a community garden? Mainly to encourage people to get involved socially, you know, maybe to combat social isolation, improve people's mental health and well-being. I started to ask people if they wanted to get involved. One of the new assistant managers, a guy called Piers, said, well, my wife's into horticulture, she'd love to get involved in all of this. Frankie came along and she said, yep, I'd like to sign up for this and I'd really like to do it. So she got involved and she's taken the lead and really kind of has been overseeing things that are going on.
It's my day off on Wednesdays and I didn't have anything else to do. I have a passion for horticulture and I'm green-fingered, and I work at a local nursery called Oliver's, and it started from there. A few drawings on a piece of paper, and now we've got about 5 or 6 volunteers that come along, and they enjoy it. We enjoy getting together. It's a nice way to spend Wednesday morning, being out in the fresh air, and we work together as a team. We've got great ideas.
So it's just kind of grown literally organically from nothing really. For the volunteers who are involved in this project, it's really about the kind of social connections that they can form. So a couple of ladies that come along regularly, they got introduced into the garden via a group called Carers First. And it's kind of like a peer support group where people come together who may be caring for family members or something like that. So these 2 ladies are actually caring for their husbands because they've got various ongoing health conditions. And so, you know, for them, they've said that this gives them a little bit of respite. It gives them a chance just to have a little bit of a laugh, meet other people, do something that's constructive and nice for the community.
People think that when you volunteer you're doing something, but I always find when I volunteer that I get more than I give, and I really enjoy the painting. I have a disabled husband and I have to look after him, so it's nice to have a few hours away from my caring duties and relax and let off a bit of steam and chat to other people. And it's lovely when you see the things that you've planted come up and grow and flourish. It's really enjoyable.
So recently Fusion and everyone involved here have won an award from the local council at Braintree. So that means that the future of this project is looking bright. So we're hoping to put on a shed, maybe some fencing and some raised beds with a ramp so that people who are wheelchair users can access the garden more easily.
It's a great thing to do in the sense that, you know, potentially you're giving something back to your community, you're meeting new people, maybe you've got skills or knowledge that you can pass on. Just a good way to learn new things, connect with other people, you know, do something valuable for yourself and for the people around in your local community.
And the reason I come is because it gives me a lot of joy, and seeing other people being happy as well makes me happy.
I volunteer with the girl guides, and I volunteer in the library, and I volunteer with this, and it's, even if you've only got an hour to spare, it's just, you'll get back a lot more than you give. It's real worth it.
What a fantastic project. Thank you very much, Councillor Bowles-Flint. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope all members will appreciate that. I think it shows the community spirit that we have in the district. Madam Chairman, I just want to make a short statement this evening on an update on 2 issues in relation to Wethersfield Airfield. One relates to the possible use of the site by the Ministry of Justice for 2 prisons, and the second is about Home Office funding received by the Council relating to the current use of the site as an asylum accommodation centre. I can begin, Madam Chairman, with the issue of prisons. Members will be aware of recent media stories surrounding proposals to use the site for 2 prisons following decisions on other prison sites. I'd like to confirm to members that the Ministry of Justice did engage in pre-application discussions with us in the past, but that we have not had any substantive pre-app meetings with the Ministry of Justice for over a year. It's important to acknowledge that given this prison proposal for the site, we believe it would need planning permission, and therefore the Ministry of Justice would need to submit a planning application to us as the local planning authority if they wanted to pursue these plans on the site. This is very different to the use of Wethersfield for asylum accommodation, where we have not been the determining planning authority for that use. I will continue to keep members updated if and when we learn more about the next stage of any proposals from the Ministry of Justice. I can now turn, Madam Chairman, to the issue of funding for the Wethersfield Airfield as a large site to accommodate asylum seekers. The Council has received funding from the Home Office to support the operation. The funding instruction is clear that this funding is to address pressures on Braintree District Council and Essex County Council services, specifically in fulfilment of our statutory duties in relation to the site. Anything otherwise needs to be agreed with the Home Office. Whilst the Home Office has said that the Council can determine how best to use the funding, within the parameters of this instruction, we must demonstrate that we have fulfilled the conditions of the grant. This funding is paid in arrears and calculated as £3,500 for each newly occupied bed space. To date, the Council has received funding based on 523 beds, namely £1,848,000. The Council cannot commit to spending money that we are not yet in receipt of. We have also not been provided with any funding commitment for bed spaces occupied after March 2024. Madam Chairman, this funding is one-off, but intended to cover the lifetime of the site. It does not need to be spent within the financial year, but must be spent within the duration of the time that the site is in use. As this is a Pathfinder site, the final number of occupied bed spaces and the associated costs of Council statutory responsibilities are unknown at this stage. Our statutory responsibilities include environmental and regulatory responsibilities, and the County Council has safeguarding and social care responsibilities. As a District Council, we feel it's important to recognise the importance of discretionary areas of activity in relation to the site, including how community and voluntary sector organisations can support service users, as well as working with communities to mitigate any direct impacts of the site. We have therefore asked for approval from the Home Office to allocate some of the funding provided for this purpose. This was summarised in December 2023 with a Cabinet paper in which I committed to establishing grant schemes to deliver support to those located at the site and the communities impacted. Today we've launched an initial grant scheme of £50,000 to support the immediate need for discretionary activities for those at the site. We are currently engaging to understand how wider communities are being impacted and plan to launch a community grant scheme later this year, and I will keep members updated on the progress with this. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. We will now proceed to agenda item 6, questions to the Leader and the Cabinet. Before commencing this item, please can I remind you that each member may only ask one question of the Leader and the Cabinet on matters which relate to the functions of the Leader and the Cabinet, the powers and duties of the Council, or matters pertaining to the District which have taken place since the last meeting of full Council held on the 11th of December 2023. Questions must be succinct and cannot be asked in parts, and supplementary questions are not permitted. Please can I remind members that they may not make statements before asking their questions. I will allow some explanation if it is necessary, but I will contain any long leading statements. Members, can I also take this opportunity to remind you that any questions relating to the budget should be reserved for the next item of business. We have 30 minutes for this item, which will commence with the first question. Questions will commence, with Councillor Beavis as Leader of the Opposition, and the order of remaining questions will be at my discretion. Please can all members wishing to speak ask a question this evening, please indicate so that I and the assistants of governance can make a list. Please keep your hand raised until acknowledged. Councillor Green. You've got all of these? Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. I've got this side. I've got this side. Can I? Thank you very much. Councillor Beavis, would you like to ask your first question? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to ask the Leader of the Council a question. I'm happy for a written response on the take-up and delivery of projects through the Rural Prosperity Fund and the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Beavis.
I'm very happy. I mean, there will be more information coming out on that. Very happy to make sure that that's obviously shared with all members.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I ask the relevant Cabinet member, please, for any update they may have on the expansion of Silver End GP surgery, which is a building which Bridge District Council owns. The NHS has said it should be expanded and has asked for Section 106 monies, which I believe total several £100,000 now to that extent. And related to that, is there any risk that that Section 106 money may have to be handed back?
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Button, are you?
Yeah, clearly we will be in discussions with the NHS to see exactly what they may require and what Section 106 money might be able to go there and what other funding would be needed to do that. So when those discussions are complete, then we'll report back to Council and also to the local ward members as well.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Toby Williams, please.
Madam Chairman, I found out that the North Essex Parking Partnership intends to charge people to park on Newland Street over social media. I haven't heard anything directly from the partnership, despite being the local ward member. These proposals would have a really damaging impact on our town. They would hit people in the pocket at the time of cost of living challenges. They would undermine local business. And they would make life more difficult for disabled and vulnerable people living in the town as well. Can the leader please outline exactly how this council can oppose and resist these wrong-headed and backwards-looking proposals? And can he also please outline how we might be able to encourage the partnership to exhibit slightly more transparency when it comes to decision-making?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I should first of all declare that I do represent this council on the North Essex Parking Partnership. It's something I inherited from my colleague, Councillor Cunningham, when he took over the highways portfolio. I'm absolutely delighted to have taken it over. Can I say, Madam Chairman, and I think people who will have watched the, may have watched the video of the NET meeting will have seen that I made several comments expressing my concern that there had been little or virtually no consultation at all, either with the local county councillors, and it is on-street parking is a county council issue, but neither also with our local ward councillors and town and parish councils, and that should be done. My understanding is that four county councillors whose area the places in Halstead, Witham and outside here, Causeway House, have requested that the matter be called in, which can be done by the relevant county council, so that matter will be called in and then we will see where we go from there. But I am in little doubt about the amount of angst that it has caused in all areas, the possibility of bringing in charges. I think it is possible to control parking without bringing in charges if it's thought that having a situation where people have, it's difficult to police it, obviously, because unless somebody is there when the person arrives and when they go, can't do it. But it is possible, of course, to indicate what time you can stay without necessarily making a charge. So in terms of the question raised by Councillor Williams, I hope as many people locally, and that includes local councillors here as well, who have strong feelings, will make them known openly to NEP without a doubt. But as I say, it will also be called in as well, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Staines, do you have a question?
Thank you, Lady Chair. What are the proposals to replace S106 with a community infrastructure levy at Braintree District Council, please? Especially any public consultation process. Thank you. I'm happy to take it as a written response if that's easier.
Thank you. Councillor Spray, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank Councillor Staines for his question. At the moment, there are no plans to replace Section 106 with SIL in this district, but obviously, clearly, we are mindful of a number of planning reforms which the government is bringing forward, some of which have already been announced, others are, we await, but at the moment, we are staying with Section 106. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jack Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Anyone that's had the misfortune to be driving around Braintree during rush hour will know that Springwood Drive is a major pinch point for traffic in our town. Having spoken with officers, I understand that there is currently a plan in place to potentially build a link road between the end of Springwood Drive and Panfield Lane. This could alleviate traffic on that Springwood Drive roundabout. I understand this is currently subject to an S106 planning agreement with Mercer Homes and Hill Residential. However, the developer is refusing to begin construction even though they have planning permission. Could the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure please update the Council as to what enforcement action she is taking with officers to ensure that this road gets built and that Braintree and Bocking South get moving again? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank Councillor Edwards for his question. I am equally frustrated by the traffic problems around that area of Braintree, as I think we all are. Anyone who drives around there regularly knows how difficult it is. And it's especially tough for people who work in many businesses along Springwood Drive and around there, who have to spend on a daily basis time trying to extricate themselves through the traffic. Councillor Edwards is quite right. There are planning applications approved and in place, and they come with Section 106 agreements, which were designed to alleviate this highways problem. Progress has been staggeringly slow by the developers. It actually, Chairman, would not be appropriate for me at this meeting to go into any detail, but I do know that officers are working extremely hard behind the scenes with the developers to try and move this forward. As Councillor Edwards has raised the question, and I know others are interested as well, I will provide an update as and when it's appropriate for me to do so. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Councillor Jeffries, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. At the Cabinet meeting last week, it was reported that there would be a requirement for the Council to produce a productivity plan, which comes along with the extra finance. And it's not really a question about the budget. It's really about if we know anything more about the productivity plan and how it's going to be funded, what the cost implication is for that. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you for that. Unfortunately, the answer is no, we haven't had any further detail on that. Again, as soon as we get it, I'm sure Councillor Bowers will let all members know exactly what is required. And I think we, like probably every other local authority, wait with bated breath to see what we would be expected to provide.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Van Duncan.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Could I just ask the Cabinet Member for Operations for an update on the garden waste subscription?
I thank Councillor Van Dalken for his question. Delighted to report that on the early bird special, I have the figures here, that in excess of 30,000 residents have signed up for the scheme, generating for this authority in excess of 841,000. Delighted that residents still continue to subscribe to the all-year garden subscription service. And as of Monday the 19th of February, at the full price, there's been subscriptions of 897, additional bins 48, additional bins purchased 40, sacks packs purchased 22, and additional income in excess of £49,000. So delighted with the take-up and look forward to the service rolling out shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Hooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to Councillor Spray, and to keep the meeting flowing, I'm happy to receive a written response later. With Braintree District having the most proposed sites in the new consultation of Essex County Council's local mineral review, that will heavily affect parishes like mine, which is Rain, and fellow colleagues in Rivenhall, Cockashall and Kelvedon, will BDC be submitting a response to the consultation? I assume that the consultation will be considered at the next local plan committee meeting, and I would like to know what steps will be taken to involve all district councillors in the affected wards when drawing up a response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you to Councillor Hooks for the question. Yes, I actually have a briefing in my diary for this week with senior officers on the minerals plan. We will most definitely be submitting a response, but there will be an opportunity for members, particularly those whose wards are most affected, to have their say. I'm aware that we are in this district being asked to take a great many more sites than other areas, and that is causing some concern. But I will give an update accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Councillor Bowles-Flint, I understand you would like to declare an interest.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Obviously, I wasn't aware of Councillor Hooks asking that question. And just to say that I am a member of the DNR Committee on County, which discussed minerals. Thank you, but I've not discussed it with her
of course,
or anybody else.
Thank you. We'll make a note of that. Thank you very much. Councillor Schweer, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Would the Cabinet Member agree with me with regards to the recent disruption to curbside collections in Uttlesford District Council, that the service that we were able to offer to help did not impact in any way the service that we gave to our residents for our curbside collections? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I thank Councillor Schweer for his question, and I think we in Braintree District were surprised and deeply concerned that due to administrative failures at independent Uttlesford District Council, that waste collection services had to cease. Therefore, I pay great tribute to Paul Partridge under his direction and the team here at Braintree District Council, that we were able to offer a comprehensive support service to the residents of Uttlesford District. And the equivalent of the support that we gave was 76 vehicle day movements, the equivalent of 219 members of staff day movements, spent 1,100 hours engaged in supporting the service, approximately 600 tonnes of waste collected, approximately 40% of households in Uttlesford supported, and we also offered fleet management support to Uttlesford District Councils with 2 of their vehicles temporarily added to our operating licence, with all due inspections carried out on their vehicles before we put them on our vehicle licence. And it's really very heartening and very pleasing, and I think it shows the spirit of cooperation within local government and public service generally, to get these warm responses from residents of the district of Uttlesford
And I quote the Takeley and Canfield Matters Facebook page, where it says, "A big thank you to the staff from Braintree Council who have put in extra hours to help empty and overflowing bins. Without all of you putting in these hours, we'd be swimming in rubbish. Every time you have come around, it's been service with a smile. I hope you all get a good break after this and are well paid for your efforts." And that was further confirmed by another member of the public who said, "Big up Braintree rubbish collectors, sorting out the mess elsewhere. And might I add, you guys do a phenomenal job in all weathers. Thank you for all your hard work all year round. We salute you." Madam Chairman, as you can imagine, we commend those sentiments 100% and delighted that the service was provided to Ottlesford without any impact on our services here on the home patch. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Heath, you have a question?
Madam Chairman, I, like Councillor Williams, came here tonight to have a good old rant at Nep, but obviously he has asked a lot and the leader has already answered it, so I should try not to go over it again. But there are other parts of the report that I have read that raise concerns for me. On page 48 of their latest concern, they acknowledge that there is a sightline issue in Maltings Lane in Witham, which is the main feeder route for traffic travelling from Malden onto the A12. But they've decided just to defer that matter. I mean, it would cost, in a grand scheme of things, pennies to solve. Why has that been deferred? No income. They also state that they are open to objections and consultations, but then on the very next page it says, which as included an assumption that all proposed sites will proceed. So yeah, that's very open and consultation. The fact that Newland Street runs from its junction at Mill Lane down to the Catholic Bridge, which leads on to Colchester Road in Witham, and that has well in excess of 50 parking spaces. They say there's 26 bays. What, are they only going to go on one side? Are they only going to kill half the high street? It's just the more I read of this report, the more annoyed I got with it, because it just seems so obvious to me that it had been written without any concern or even knowledge of what goes on in Witham. I mean, Councillor Butland, bless his heart, he was down in the Colchester Gazette's quote saying that we have to be careful in the Halstead area because there's a funeral parlour there and grieving families go. There are 4 funeral parlours in Newland Street in Witham. As long as 4 dispensing chemists, 1 doctor's surgery, they're the only high street bank we've got left. Banks don't need a lot of excuses to shut their branches down. But the most annoying bit was on page 58. They say that they think this could raise £6,094. On page 62, it says 9,968 to £12,000. What's right? Our buzzword is fit for the future. This organisation makes me wonder if it's fit for the present or the past, let alone the future. And I really do think that perhaps we should reconsider our membership of this organisation.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Heath. It was a very lengthy question, but thank you very much.
Oh, so a green light, not a red one. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Heath. I'm not quite sure where the question was, but could I just say, when you make your representations, if you wish to copy them to me, I would find that very helpful as well. I didn't claim to have knowledge of Halstead. The officer who was with me, who I'm sure will be known to you as a resident of Halstead, who did actually mention that was a place where people tended to gather to follow the hearse, etc. But please do make it. As regards your last question about fitness for purpose, I'm not going to argue strongly with you.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Prime, do you have a question, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to the Cabinet and the relative person concerning the cycle lane that's appeared between Coggeshall Road and Rain Road at the top of Bank Street. My question is, what's it cost per cycle? Because I haven't seen hardly any use of it. In fact, I've seen 3, and they were Deliveroo or, what is it, some food deliveries, and that is all. So my thing is, could that money have been spent better places, like potholes or clearing drains? Thank you.
Councillor Spray, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank Councillor Prime for his question. I will ensure that this is raised with Essex Highways, but I think I will be providing a more detailed written response. That's okay. Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Councillor Green, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I was just wondering if there'll be any car parking machines in Braintree that will take cash. Thank you.
Thank you. All these things that I have inherited. Look at that. I look for advice and not a single head nods or goes. My understanding, no. Thank you. Councillor Annette Bowers-Flint says no. And we are moving towards that. It does save clearly a lot of money and also it's safer, etc. There are basically, I think, very few people now don't have the ability to be able to use the machines either on their smart things or by ordinary credit card as well. So it is the intention that we will not have cash collection. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Abram, do you have a question?
Thank you, Madam. Yeah, residents have been tweeting my ear constantly. They want to know at the moment about the council tax. How much is brought in at the moment and how much is outstanding? So will we get any figures anywhere?
Thank you, Councillor Abram. Do we have...
Yes, Madam Chairman. I know there were some fears that during the period, economic period we had, that there may be a decline. My understanding is that the amount of council tax that's been collected, and I will just sort of look this way, is in excess of 99% is being collected. So, which is very, very good. And of course, for those who can't, there is the services available to work with them if there are genuine reasons why they can't do it. But the actual collection rate has remained, I think, in some cases, perhaps to a certain surprise, has remained very high indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Right, my question relates to domestic and sexual violence towards women. When this subject came up before, the answer I received insinuated that it was better that the women stayed in her own home and the perpetrator was removed. In an ideal world, this would work, where men could be swiftly removed and women stayed and children remained in school. In reality, this does not always happen, as police are thin on the ground, councils, social services and charities are strapped for cash, and the courts, to get an injunction to remove someone, are overwhelmed. Domestic and sexual violence is hidden. By the time a woman's life is in danger, she is often prevented from seeing family and friends. Children's school attendance is disrupted and she is isolated. Since the pandemic, women have become more hidden with home working. Although at this stage, women have no confidence or self-esteem left. So rather than ask for help, they will cover their bruises and try to carry on as normal. The most vulnerable time for a woman is when the partner suspects that she is planning to leave.
Councillor Martin.
I've nearly finished. It's a very short question.
Thank you.
This is when she is at most risk of murder. So she often has to leave in a hurry. With nowhere to go, she and her children will end up on the streets in unsuitable accommodation and go from one crisis to another. What I need to know is, where is there support for these women and children? It's so easy to turn a blind eye because it's not something that affects us all, like bin collections. It is hidden until it is too late.
Thank you. Councillor Mary Cunningham, thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Martin. Thank you, Madam Chairman. As Councillor Martin will know, a lot of work has been done with the Safer Streets partnership in Witham. It's a major part of what the PFCC are doing now. In response to your question, there are several groups that are dealing with that. One of them in the district is CARA. There are others which actually I haven't got quite to hand at the moment. But if you can leave that with me, I will get a written response for you. But I know it is a very serious concern amongst a lot of women, and the police are doing a lot with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. I believe that I have concluded with everybody who has any questions. Are there any further questions? Have I omitted anybody? No? Thank you. Thank you, members. That concludes this item. Any question requiring a written response will be answered within 10 working days of this meeting and shared with all members. We will now proceed to agenda item 7, Council Budget and Council Tax 2024-25 and Medium-Term Financial Strategy 2024-25 to 2027-28. Members, the detail pertaining to this item is set out in the Council Budget and Council Tax Report. The Addendum Report and the Council Tax Resolution 2023-24 report, which was circulated separately to the agenda. There is also an amendments pack, which has been circulated to all councils in advance of this meeting. I would like to invite Councillor Butland to move all of the relevant recommendations for full council. Please can I remind you that before you make your speech, it must be seconded. Councillor Butland.
I formally move the recommendations, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Butland has moved the recommendations. Please can I have a seconder?
I formally second the recommendations, Madam
Thank
Chairman.
you, Councillor Bowers. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Yes.
Councillor Butland, please could you present your report?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, it's my great pleasure to introduce the Administration's budget for 2024-25 and to formally move the recommendations set out in items 7.1 and 7.2 on the agenda paper. The recommendations themselves are contained in paragraph 18 of the paper and relate to the Council's budget for 2024-5, the Medium-Term Financial Strategy 24-25 to 27-28, and the Council Tax Resolution 2024-25. Madam Chairman, for local authorities, the continuing demands upon the National Exchequer have continued some of the uncertainties that I spoke of in last year's budget debate. Although the 2021 Autumn Budget and Spending Review Statement outlined a 3-year funding envelope for local government, the Treasury has continued to give only single-year finance settlements for the last 3 years. This, Madam Chairman, makes financial planning for local authorities difficult and is one of the main reasons that we need to adopt a cautious approach when setting a budget. In addition, global events make a challenging economic backdrop, resulting in greater uncertainty, volatility and risk. The Council itself faces its own cost pressures due to higher pay costs, inflation and demand for services. Decisions on capital investment need to be weighed against the backdrop of higher borrowing costs. Sound financial management and a prudent approach has meant this Council is in a better position than many others. Nevertheless, whilst the budget for 24-25 has been balanced, a budget gap remains over the medium term, which will only be addressed by continuing to look at better ways of delivering services and ensuring that finite resources are focused on the priorities which are seen as important to our residents and businesses. In 23-24, the Council committed to a 2-year programme of support, investing £1 million to work with partners in supporting residents during the cost of living crisis. 2024-25 will also see further investment of over £1 million into communities and businesses through our plans for spending the Shared Prosperity and Rural England Prosperity allocated funding. The proposed budget includes over £700,000 of additional investment in services to meet unavoidable cost pressures, service demands, and generally to improve the way the Council works. A further £600,000 is being set aside from the New Homes bonus to help drive forward the Fit for Future programme that is critical to the long-term financial resilience of the authority and to ensure that the Council is best placed and resourced to deliver its corporate strategy over the next 4 years. There is extra funding to ensure that we fully engage with the Essex-wide agenda, supporting our involvement and leadership in the work of the North Essex Councils and North Essex Economic Board. There are also plans for £200,000 to be allocated to climate change initiatives, adding to the £600,000 previously made available, which is already delivering results against the agreed Climate Change Action Plan. Madam Chairman, the budget proposes the continuation of the Councillor Community Grant Scheme, with £1,250 allocated to each member to use in 2024-25 to support community projects. Funding for the Street Scene Partnership is also being retained at the current level of £89,000, which is paid direct to parish councils. Plans for new capital expenditure include £280,000 for 4 play area refurbishments, with an extra £70,000 being made available to replace safety surfacing across various other play areas. Grant funding will continue through the Disabled Facilities Grant Programme, along with major housing grants, where means-tested funding is provided for the installation or repair of hot water and heating systems. Continued life cycle investment is to be made into critical ICT system and operational facilities. As part of the Council's transformation programme, capital provision has been made to create a modern working environment in this building, Causeway House, that will support collaboration and partnership working, and which will deliver better service for customers whilst creating income-generating opportunities by making better use of the office space. This new capital, Madam Chairman, is on top of over £13 million worth of existing projects that include funding for a Maltings Lane Community Centre, town centre improvements in Halstead and Witham, several skate park refurbishments, and wide-ranging investments in other community and leisure facilities. Management will continue to look for savings and opportunities to increase income, with new proposals totalling £296,000 included in the budget. As we've already heard tonight, take-up of the new garden waste subscription service has exceeded expectations, with income for the first year contributing significantly towards the cost of this discretionary service. Fees and charges have also been reviewed, taking account of the higher level of pay and other inflationary pressures impacting upon the Council's costs, but also mindful that increases create additional financial pressure for service users. Madam Chairman, the proposed level of discretionary fees and charges are set out in the appendices to the report. Support for low-income households will continue through the Local Council Tax Support Scheme, which we recently changed so that it targets support to the lowest income households and simplifies the process for claiming. There is also additional financial help available through an exceptional hardship fund and the discretionary housing payments fund. And advice is available through the Money Advice Service, provided in partnership with the Citizens Advice, and also from welfare officers employed in the Council's Revenues and Benefits team. Finally, Madam Chairman, I turn to the proposals in respect of council tax. As a district, we are the 4th most populated in Essex, and we cover 612 square kilometres, the 2nd largest district in the county. 90% of the district is green space and contains 31 different parks and open spaces. And within the district, there are over 9,800 businesses. The District Council provides a diverse range of services, including environmental health, planning control and enforcement, leisure services, waste recycling and collection, licensing, benefits, parks and open spaces, housing, economic development, and many, many other services. It provides all these services to residents living in both our rural and urban areas. We do not make any distinguishing between urban and rural areas when providing our services. Our current Band D council rate for 23-24 at £194.31 was the fourth lowest of the 12 district and borough councils in Essex and was significantly below the national shire district average. This budget proposes an increase in the council's share of the council tax bill of £5.76 for the whole year, which equates to 11 pence a week. This will set the proposed Band D rate for BD's share of the overall bill of £200.07. We will again remain the fourth lowest in the county, significantly below some authorities that are upwards of £280 for a Band D. In conclusion, Madam Chairman, this budget is one that protects local services, ensures that the Council's finances are sound, and continues to provide excellent value for money for Council taxpayers in the district, and I commend it to the full Council.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Bowers, as seconder, please could I invite you to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm very proud to, along with Councillor Butland, be introducing the budget for 24-25. Following on from Councillor Butland's words, I'm proud to set out more about our plan to protect essential services, deliver on priorities whilst ensuring long-term financial resilience. This council has a strong track record of sound financial management, making £10 million of savings and extra income over the past 10 years. The council is proposing to continue investing in essential services and priorities, including affordable housing, excellent waste service delivery, play area improvements, and supporting the district to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030 as part of its climate change objectives. This is on top of the existing projects that include funding for a Mortins Lane Community Centre, town centre improvements in Housestead and Witham, funding to Housestead voluntary faith and community groups, and skate park refurbishments. In last year's budget, the council committed to spend £1 million over 2 years on delivering cost of living support, with funding provided to Braintree Area Food Bank for a new distribution centre, delivery service and outreach worker. Funding was also provided to Sport for Confidence to support their work with vulnerable adults to attend and enjoy leisure and sport facilities. The council will continue to support low-income households who may struggle to pay council tax with the recently approved council tax support scheme. An extra £50,000 has also been set aside to be allocated through an exceptional hardship fund. Whilst the council is able to set a balanced budget for 2024-25, a budget gap increasing up to £2.3 million per annum is projected by 27-28. Doing nothing to deal with the budget shortfall would mean having to use nearly £6 million of balances to be able to set a legal budget. A volatile and uncertain world with continuing inflationary pressures and increased demand for council services means the financial pressures will only grow. Our strong financial management and work to find savings and efficiency over many years means that we are not having to make huge cuts this year or introduce significant additional charges for non-statutory services like many other councils, but there are still difficult decisions ahead. We, of course, are always reluctant to increase council tax, but this is essential to help protect statutory services, ensure that unavoidable cost pressures can be met this year, and to support our longer-term financial stability. The Provisional Local Government's Finance Settlement for 2024-25 was published on the 18th of December 2023. The Provisional Settlement is the 6th consecutive single-year settlement and is detailed in the Cabinet reports. The Government publishes a core spending power statement to illustrate the resources which it calculates are available to an authority to deliver services. For district councils, the core spending power consists of business rate income and revenue support grant, collectively referred to as the settlement funding assessment, assumed income from council tax, new homes bonus and other grants. Part of the core spending power is provided as cash grants, whereas other elements such as council tax and business rates are provided as notional sums which the government anticipate each authority to be able to generate. The provisional core spending power figures for this council were provided in 6.2.2 of the Cabinet report. Communication of the final settlement were received on the 5th of February, which was obviously after the Corporate Scrutiny Committee, after the Cabinet report was published, and on the day of the last Cabinet meeting, where Phil Myers, our Head of Finance and Section 151 officer, provided an update. The detail of the final settlement confirms that the Council has been allocated additional funding of £172,834 over and above that provided in the provisional settlement. This extra funding is made up of Services Grant, an extra £2,155, giving a total of £24,345, Rural Services Delivery Grant, an extra £4,097, giving a total of £30,046, and the Funding Guarantee, an extra £166,582, giving a total of £982,723. The addendum report and update before members tonight regarding the final local government's finance settlement includes the additional recommendation. The additional grant of £172,834 receivable from the final local government finance settlement for 24-25 is combined with half of the allocation of new homes bonus receivable for 24-25 and used to fund expenditure incurred on the Fit for the Future transformation programme, with a balance of the new homes bonus held as a risk management reserve. It is important that we invest now into our transformation programme to ensure that we can make the necessary changes at pace. And so, with the extra funding allocated this year, when added to the funds already agreed in 23-24, this will enable us to procure the resources and investment that will be needed over the next 3 years to deliver on the key aims and objectives, and so helping to create a more sustainable future for the Council. The assumptions and estimates underpinning the budget and MTFS have been reviewed considering the latest information available and applying best estimates. Services have reviewed their budgets, identifying cost pressures, areas of proposed budget growth and opportunities for savings and additional income. Previously agreed savings have been reviewed. Whilst a balanced budget is achieved for 24-25, across the remaining period of the MTFS there is still a significant shortfall. The structural budget gap increases up to 2.346 million per annum by 27-28. Without taking any action, this would require 5.708 million of general fund balances to be used to balance the budget for each year of the MTFS from 25-26. When you consider that the structural budget gap per annum by 27-28 is 2.346 million, illustrates just how reckless the G&I Group's amendments to last year's budget were. For example, if Council took forward their amendment of a 1% council tax rise, we would not only have had to find an extra 156,000 for the last year, but with further years' assumptions, this would have increased the budget gap by 176,000 per annum by 26-27. Over the lifetime of the MTFS, this would have resulted in a reduction in funding to the Council totalling £663,000. I would just like to mention that I've received representation from the Whittam Industrial Watch against our proposal to include for the first time in 15 years a charge for collecting and paying over Business Improvement District levies, but feel our proposal is fair and justified given the costs incurred by the Council. I will also be providing a written response in reply to this communication. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Phil Myers, our Head of Finance and Section 151 officer, along with Mark Jarvis, our Financial Services Manager, and Suzanne Bennett, Corporate Director. We are so lucky as members of this authority to have such dedicated officers, such as those and their wider teams who work so diligently on the detail before us tonight. In conclusion, work is underway to address our future funding gap over the next 4 years through our transformation programme to look at the challenges we face. It's not about fixing something that is broken, but building on the successes we've had so far and to change and adapt to support the delivery of services in future years. We are proud to propose a budget to protect essential services, deliver on priorities whilst ensuring long-term financial resilience, which we look to Council to support. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Members, before we proceed with the debate on the budget and council tax resolution reports, there are 2 amendments that need considering this evening. Accordingly, an amendment pack has been circulated to members, which contains the details of the proposed amendments to the budget. Can I invite Councillor Beavis to formally move your amendments as set out in the amendment pack? And please can I remind you that before you make your speech on your motion, it must be seconded.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There are two amendments in front of us this evening on the amendment pack. I put forward both of those amendments and wait for a seconder. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Beevers. Members, Councillor Beevers has formally moved the amendments. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Abbott, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, yes, second the amendments and reserve the right to speak.
Of course, thank you very much. Councillor Beevers, please could you present your amendments as set out in the amendment pack? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In proposing the amendments 1 and 2 in the amendment papers this evening, I just wanted to thank the officers for their support in preparing the amendment papers, which has been truly appreciated, so thank you very much. There is no additional request for funding. This is a reallocation of funding within the current budget profile, and the amendments do not conflict with the Fit for the Future programme. So Amendment 1, the new recommendation is the creation of a new rural investment fund of £500,000 funded from the New Homes Bonus to assist our rural village areas in progressing identified capital projects to community-owned assets which fit the Braintree District's Council's corporate priorities and could be delivered through the establishment of a new community development plan. And one example I just wanted to cite, if I may, Madam Chairman, in terms of recommendation 1, is an example in my own ward of Braintree District Council-owned buildings, which are currently used for quite significant enterprise and also quite significant sports activities. Both areas with substantial buildings could really do with an update and a refresh. So that's just one example in my ward, and I'm sure other members would have examples of theirs. Amendment number 2 this evening in the pack is to add those residents who currently have assisted bin collections, which we're told is approximately 1,240 residents, to the new green bin service, but without charging them. Funded from the additional funding of £173,000 of additional government funding allocated to Braintree District Council for the purposes of delivering services. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I so move.
Members, the amendments have been formally moved and seconded by Councillor Beevers and Councillor Abbott. Members, before I open the debate, please can I remind you that you are expected to only speak once during the debate on both the amendments. Members wishing to speak on the wider budget will be given an opportunity to speak on the main budget once the amendments have first been considered. Speeches must be confined to the amendments under discussion and should last no longer than 5 minutes. I will curtail any speeches which do not meet this criteria. Do any members wish to speak on this item? No one at all. Right. Okay. Councillor Ritchie, would you like to begin, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm just here to remind members about what we do for our rural areas. So we have the Rural England Prosperity Funding, which is over £500,000 over the next 2 years. 147 of that has been committed this year. Some of the successful bids include Rain Village Hall and Handfield Parish Council, the embodiment of working within our rural areas. It doesn't stop there. There's around 20 councillors who we can call as truly rural, and the council community grant scheme should be spent in those rural areas as well to help supplement some of those needs within those rural areas. And the leader and Councillor Bowers both mentioned the cost of living funding. Only today we had a media announcement saying that that funding is allowing small grants of up to £10,000 for capital projects within our rural areas. And let's not also forget that we're in year 3 of the shared prosperity funding. There's £100,000 for this year dedicated to community facilities and assisting them in in becoming green and more environmentally friendly. So there's a number of schemes that we do as a council, not just from a funding perspective. We also offer our practical advice as well, with allowing some of these parish councils and community groups to improve their assets. Another area where we help and assist some of these community groups and parish councils, bearing in mind that parish councils are precept setting as well, so they do have their own voice and they do have their own choice in what they deliver as well, and there's some great examples of that. But some examples of where they've done that and they've not just relied on the handouts or the handbacks. Is Little Yeldon, Tilbury Juxta Clare and Ovington, £58,000 of play equipment that they secured from National Lottery funding. Again from National Lottery funding. Starsted play equipment, £10,000. Great Notley Raft, £10,000 from National Lottery. Toppers Hill play equipment, £8,200. Community defibrillators in Fearing, Castle Hedingham, Mapestead, Ashton, Belsham, St Paul, 20,000 towards community defibrillators. Again, all working in the rural areas. Belsham Water, £10,000 grant for the improving of the village hall through additional wiring to make them a more safer facility. And then how can we forget Gosfield Community Shop, £150,000. That's quite dear to me because I grew up in Gosfield. I was a bit of a local lad around Gosfield. £150,000 towards their community shop. Now, we haven't provided all of those, admittedly, if they've been funded through National Lottery, but we've certainly been there to help support the bid writing and be a supporter for those rural areas that are searching for that bid funding. And for those of you close enough to listen to the numbers that I've been banding around tonight, over £2 million, councillors, £2 million in our rural areas. We do look after our rural areas. We will continue to look after our rural areas. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Parker, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I do support what Councillor Ritchie said, and I'm afraid I'm not going to support Amendment 1 as proposed by Councillor Beavis. It would involve taking money away from the Transformation Fund, which I agree with Councillor Button is absolutely essential to work out how we are going to address this budget gap. And it would also take money away from risk management, which in these uncertain times I think is very important that we do have a substantial buffer to deal with the unexpected. I represent a very rural ward. We're very lucky in rural wards to have a lot of village halls. I've got 8 village halls in my ward. From those facilities, we can groups can hold Pilates classes, children's play. Children's parties and so on, so which is possibly not, I think the more urban areas don't have the benefit of those community facilities. Funding is available from other bodies, as Councillor Ritchie has said. The one he didn't mention in his list was £400,000 from the National Lottery to Ridgewell Village Hall. They raised a total of £650,000 from their fundraising with the Village Hall Committee. There are funding pots available. We do get a monthly email, a rural funding digest with the list of all charities and funding organisations that can support rural communities. So I really do not think it is appropriate to be taking money away from our Transformation Fund and risk management as proposed by Councillor Beavis. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to speak against this amendment today. Time and time again, it seems, we see the G&I Group bringing to this council measures that will shovel more money into rural communities. I don't deny that rural poverty does exist, but look at the stats. The rural communities in this district, some of them are the most well-off communities in our district. I represent Bocking South. That's the most deprived ward in this district. We don't have a nice village hall that could do with a touch-up. We do have some community spaces, but what this fund would do is shovel £500,000, where we have already committed, as Councillor Ritchie laid out, a large sum of money to communities that simply do not need it. Time and time again, as I say, we see the GNI Group coming to defend their own sectional interests, not thinking about the wider needs of this district, and that's why I'll be voting against this amendment this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Tom Cunningham.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and I rise to speak against the amendment on assisted bin collections. I don't think this amendment can be supported, as again, as colleagues have so eloquently said, it's a short-term tactical decision tabled by the opposition, but with not one eye on the long-term financial position as outlined by Councillor Bowers and the challenges we face. 54% of those who are receiving assisted collections have already signed up to the new garden waste service. And I think there's this rather dangerous assumption that there's a direct link between assisted bin collections and those who are in financial need. And that's just plain wrong. This policy, if implemented, could actually financially benefit some of the most able in society. And that's unfair. And I think this policy put forward by the Green Independents was intended to be inclusive, and okay, acknowledge that. But actually, the unintended consequence of what is supposed to be an inclusive policy is actually a regressive policy. And we can't support that. As colleagues mentioned, we are developing bold plans, working with others to transform the way we deliver services for the future, helping give local government in this area a new engine in response to the challenges we've all faced thanks to the unprecedented events of recent years and the exciting opportunities of the future. And therefore, a regressive policy slipped through the budget would not benefit that long-term objective by further eroding those vital funds that we need to deliver that most important work. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Therefore, I will be voting against and urge all colleagues to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Toby Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to reinforce what Councillor Cunningham has just said, specifically on the second amendment that we need to look at tonight, for me, this is an amendment that smacks of unfairness. I represent the very centre of Witham, and from the top to the bottom of my ward, there are scores of people who live in flats. These are people who tend not to be particularly wealthy. They certainly don't have access to their own garden. But as a result of this amendment, were it ever to become policy, it would be those people who would be subsidising, very, very possibly, extremely wealthy people living in big houses in other parts of our district. Because as we can see from the amendment, there is no suggestion anywhere that this should be means tested in any way, shape or form. I think anyone can see that this is inherently unfair, and anyone who believes in a fair taxation system, in social justice, and ensuring that those with the broader shoulders take on the biggest financial burden should stick to their principles and vote against this amendment tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. No more questions? Councillor Abbott, as the seconder to the amendments, and you've not spoken in this debate, do you wish to speak now?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. The first amendment on setting up the Rural Investment Fund does not impact on council tax, and neither does it impact on the Fit for Future programme, because it would be drawn from the unallocated £1 million plus of New Homes bonus money. I don't know if members of the administration are aware that that money is available from previous years. What we are seeking to do is help to redress a long-standing investment imbalance between urban and rural. And I would at this point, Madam Chairman, say that very little opportunity is given to non-administration councillors to have any say at all on where New Homes bonus money is spent, or indeed Section 106 money. And yet there has been so much development in our villages and rural areas in recent years, not least in part to the planning failures of this administration. For future years, perhaps as a suggestion, it should be up for discussion in principle from an early stage as to what NHB money is listed. Councillor Ricky listed a long list of rural programmes which have been and schemes which have been money's been spent on, and all well and good. Although he did admit that some of them were not funded by Braintree District Council, and I believe he totalled them up to be £2 million. Well, given that 50% of our residents live in rural areas compared to urban, how does that match the tens of millions of pounds spent in Braintree Town alone in recent years? It's a very small amount compared to what's being spent in our towns. So we think this is a very sensible amendment. It helps to redress a long-standing funding imbalance, and we urge members to support it. Moving on to the second amendment, again, our proposal to help people with assisted collections on the green bin service does not impact on council tax. I have to say we were a little bit disappointed to see in the amendment pack officer comments that this is about income, and various members of the administration have picked up on. It is absolutely not about low income. It's about people who have mobility issues. And the fact also is that the green bin charging has brought in more money than expected. So there's a little bit of wriggle room here. The trajectory for what was expected to be brought in was much less than what actually has been. And we're going to be in a position, if we don't help those with mobility problems, that their black bins will continue to be collected, but their green bins won't, unless they've paid for the service. We've heard a lot about fairness. Well, where's the fairness in that? There appears to be a forest of reasons why we shouldn't do this. And yet, if you look at the officer report, third paragraph from the bottom, mention's been made about means testing, and I quote this, it says this: applying for assisted bin service requires the individual to confirm one of the following. There's no one at the property who can physically take the bin to the edge of the boundary. They're reliant on a carer. They have a permanent disability, or they are recovering from an illness or injury. And in fact, we found out recently that the figure we'd been previously given of about 2,500 people with assisted collections has already been halved due to a reassessment of the scheme. So we're talking now about 1,000 something compared to 2,500. So we talk about fairness. Yeah, we're talking about fairness. This is about fairness of helping those people who have those problems and having a level playing field. It's not about income, and we would commend our amendment to this to all members tonight to support it in the interest of helping those with mobility problems. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. I'll now invite Councillor Beavis, as the proposer of the amendments, to make a closing speech. Please can I remind you, Councillor Beavis, that you may not raise any new matters at this stage.
I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, members. We will now proceed to a vote on the amendments. Each amendment will have its own vote. This means that we will conduct two separate votes. Amendment 1. All those in favour of Amendment 1, please indicate. Thank you. All those against, please indicate. Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you very much. The amendment is lost. We'll move to amendment number 2. Members, please can I remind you that you're going to be voting on amendment 2 as set out in your amendment pack. All those in favour of the amendment 1, please indicate. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Amendment 2. Thank you. All those against, please indicate. Yeah. Any abstentions? Thank you. Any abstentions, please? No abstentions? One? Thank you very much. The amendment is lost. Members, we have dealt with the amendments, but before we move to the main budget debate, I'd like to give Councillors Butland and Bowers, as mover and seconder of the recommendations, the opportunity to say a few words on the amended budget. Oh, I'm so sorry. We've moved to the wrong part of the...
Apologies. The amendment has not been passed, just to reaffirm, so we will now move to the main budget debate.
Very sorry about that. It's a typographical error there. Thank you, members. We will now proceed with the main budget debate, including the Council Tax Resolution 2023-24. Councillor Butland has already moved the budget and Council Tax Resolution, and this has been seconded by Councillor Cunningham, and we have already heard from both members, Councillor Bowers, at the start of this item. Please can I remind members that they are expected to only speak once during the debate, and that during this debate you are speaking on the proposed budget and Council Tax Resolution. Speeches should be confined to the matters under discussion and should last no longer than 5 minutes. I will curtail any speeches that do not meet this criteria. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Please indicate now. Councillor Butland has already moved the budget. Right, here we are. We'll move to the councillors. Right, so we'll start with Councillor Staines. Would you like to give your question, please?
Thank you, Lady Chairman. We're being asked to vote tonight on a Fit for the Future plan of £1.5 million. That's nearly the same amount as the pre-election resident bonus giveaway. But we have few details of the key objectives or goals of this bold and cautious plan, and we won't find out this until the end of March. How can we be voting on that with no detail? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Staines. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will absolutely be supporting this balanced budget this evening as set out by the leader and by Councillor Bowers. A sensible budget that will see us through for the next year or so and takes into account the medium-term financial strategy for this council as well. Madam Chairman, we have a great track record of delivering for our residents, and this budget for this upcoming year will do exactly the same. Section 114 notices served by Croydon, Slough, Thurrock, Birmingham, Woking and Nottingham, to name but a few. The LGA said there are 26 at risk in the next 2 years alone. This council balances its budget, makes wise investments for every single member of this district. We haven't slipped up, we won't slip up, which is why we take our investment policy so seriously, and which is why we deliver for our electorate across the whole of the district. We won't be falling into the trap of becoming a council at risk of not being able to fulfil its duties. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Beavis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I rise to support the budget. I just wanted to just say one quick thing. We are the ING group and not the GNI, just for clarity. I think it's important to say that. So I will be supporting the budget 24-25 plus the MTFS 24 to 28, as it incorporates and the newly consulted upon corporate strategy, aspects of the Live Well strategy, the community safety partnership work, the local plan and housing delivery, but most importantly, it's about retaining and improving our service delivery. Through the process of corporate scrutiny, all members have been invited to make amendments and comments, a democratic opportunity that the ING Group appreciate. The Chairman of Corporate Scrutiny concluded the budget process by speaking about the importance of partnerships and working with our town and parish councils, our stakeholders, and doing that in collaboration. Hopefully, the process for the possible community delivery plan will create the opportunity for a public-facing document that our people and communities will understand and relate to in partnership and with meaningful engagement. In terms of my budget summary, there is no percentage increase on our budget papers, which I find quite unusual. I'm not entirely convinced that we've all bounced back together, but hopefully we'll be fit for the future and the process will deliver true transformation fairly across our district. Residents and I are uncomfortable at the £1.2 million of capital funding that's been allocated for updating Causeway House before the asset strategy has even commenced, and would rather see improvements to council-owned buildings in the rural areas. We're grateful for the capital funding improvements to the play areas of Oxford and Brookmeadow in Sybil Hedingham, but disappointed that the proposed Rural Investment Fund has not been approved because council-owned buildings would benefit from this system. Hopefully the new productivity plans will deliver transformation fairly across our district. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bevis. Could I invite Councillor Jeffries, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not dispute that the Council, and particularly the Cabinet, have worked hard with sound financial management and have taken a prudent approach to the Council's finances. While we welcome the additional government settlement, the Government continues to stifle local government, having drastically reduced funding to local councils over the past 14 years. It would greatly help the Council if the Government was set a long-term funding settlement which would allow the Council, and with it local charities and organisations, to make plans for the future, particularly with the important new strategies for homelessness and rough sleeping, and with the Live Well strategy. I think the Government is short-sighted in not giving this local support, as the money at ground level can go a long way and prevent issues escalating. I'll be abstaining from the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Could I invite Councillor Parker, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a short point, really. I just want to say how pleased I am to see that the Council Community Grant scheme has been retained, and also I know Parish Council will be very pleased to see the retention of the Street Cleansing Fund, which I certainly my villages use linked towards their grass cutting. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I very much agree with what speakers have said about local government finance situation, but of course that is after 14 years of Conservative governments that councils find themselves effectively going bankrupt, including Conservative councils. And I would agree with all the comments that have been made about the urgent need for reform of local government finance. This budget does contain some good things, but I see it as a very corporate budget. It fits in with the trend for this council to become more of a corporate-focused council. It is good to see, as Councillor Staines said, which flows from that, the Fit for the Future details are vague. The only thing I was listening very carefully what administration members were here. The only thing I could hear for definite was something about procuring resources, but I'm not sure what that really means. And I would reiterate the comment I made earlier that these large sums of money which we have coming into the district from the government, there needs to be a wider discussion amongst all members about what it's spent on, particularly New Homes bonus money. I'm very pleased to see the street scene grant is kept going. For those of us who lob grenades over this towards us and say we're useless, well, actually we have 2 or 3 years running consistently said, can we keep the street scene funding going to parish council? So we're pleased to see that. Also good to see community council grants going, but There's no money entered in for 25-26 or future years in the MTFS. Does that mean it's going to disappear? If you look at your papers, it's blank for future years. So does that mean we're only going to get one more year of the council grants? What I'd like to finish on, Madam Chairman, is cost of living. Opinion surveys continue to say that cost of living is a huge issue for many of our residents. And whilst this council does have a very good low-income household support through council tax and all sorts of things it's done through food banks, etc., it is a fact that charges on many things for residents are going up. And one of them is the garden waste collections. Now, the other side talked about fairness. Have they done any analysis of the half of the people who were using green bins last year who are not going to be using them this year because they have not paid the subscription? How many of them are on low incomes and couldn't afford to pay? And of course we will be reminding members for Whitton North and their agent repeatedly that they said that the green bin charge was going to be cancelled during the elections last year and accused us of misleading the public for saying the charges was coming. So that's one charge that's coming in. We also have the extra charges for parking, which it does sound like there's quite a lot of cross-party support that that's the wrong thing to do in our town centres. Inflation's still too high, rail fares are going up, and for many, energy prices remain a huge worry. And as Councillor Beaver said, it doesn't actually say in these papers, and none of the members said, how much council tax is going up as a percentage. It would be useful to know that. So I think all in all, there's a lot to be worried about here in terms of cost of living and how that's going to impact on our communities. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Could I invite Councillor Jack Edwards, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just before I begin speaking, I apologise to the leader of the ING Group. Of course, I should have referred to you as you, the ING Group. There are more independents, obviously, across there than there are Greens. Apologies. Now, Madam Chair, I rise to speak in support of this budget today. And first off, I'd like to do a few thank yous. As a first-time member, this is all very, very new to me, so I'd like to thank both councillors and officers for helping members such as myself through this process. I think it's a testament to the sound financial management of this council that we've been able to set a balanced budget without any cuts to the key services that we provide. I'd like to particularly commend the Cabinet Member for Resources and Performance for his sterling work throughout this process. Now, as a low-tax Conservative, I'm always looking at our council tax and thinking, how can we limit that rise? I'm very, very pleased that we've been able to limit that rise to 2.96% or only 11p extra a week, while still maintaining our cost of living fund that is going to make an absolutely massive difference to communities like mine in Bocking South. I look forward particularly to the council bringing forward the Fit for the Future programme, where I hope we can have discussions about how we can best deliver services as well as providing even better value for money. I look forward also to having conversations about that £1.2 million new homes bonus made possible by the fantastic land decisions of this authority and how that can benefit communities like mine in Bocking South. Finally, just as the Vice Chair of the Governance and Audit Committee, Councillor Justin Reg can't be with us this evening, but I'd like to extend a particular thank you to three fantastic officers who, without them, we would not be able to scrutinise the financial management of this authority. Phil Myers, Angie Mitchell and Mark Jarvis, where BDO has completely failed to provide us with an external audit function. These three officers really have kept the show on the road, and I'm hugely, hugely grateful for all the work they've done. So, as I say, I'm very much in support of this budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Whilst being prepared to accept and note the budget, I am unable to support it for several reasons. One being that the budget has a number of priorities which I am uncomfortable with, which I fully accept because we contested the election on two different manifestos. So I fully accept that, and I accept that, as I say, I accept the budget that's been put in front of us. But a number of points that I do have concerns with include the fact that I do believe that this budget still imposes double taxation on a number of towns and parishes within the district on a number of items. The cost of road closures being one for Christmas and civic events. Another one, the spiralling costs of the authority's challenge over Wethersfield. Does the £350,000-ish that we've been quoted so far include all the officer time and frontline costs? I, as a member that is now approaching the year here, have never had the opportunity to vote on this. Never had a say on it. Is the action we're taking the correct action and in the best interest of our residents? I don't know. But that is all got to come out of our budget. In response to what the previous councillor just said, last year, I, as a Band C taxpayer, I paid around £150 for my district council services, which included the green bin collection. To have the same this year is going to cost me the best part of £200 because I haven't got the new home election round the corner bonus and I'm paying for the bin. So whether you really think that is just 2.99% is, well, it's something for you to decide. I do not necessarily support the selling of the family silver assets to cover the gaps because you can only sell it once. I mean, look at what's happened with homes by doing that. But are all of our assets real assets? I mean, could something like a memorial garden be transferred to a Royal British Legion Trust with 75% of the costs that the council are at the moment paying given to these people to run them locally and more efficiently, and also allow them to go out and get sponsorship and grants, because people and businesses with the best will in the world are more likely to sponsor the Royal British Legion than they operate through District Council. So are we using the best of what we've got? One part that I do thoroughly recommend and enjoy seeing is section 2.15 that says the council tax discounts and exemptions are going to be much tightened up, and well done. Really, really great to see that. Let's get as many homes that are standing empty filled with people that need them. There's too many. There's not enough homes, but there's too many homes that are empty, and that needs to be sorted out. As I said, I'm prepared to accept the budget, for of course the council has to set a legal precept, and 2.99 base increase is the maximum the government will allow. As I said at corporate scrutiny, I assure you that I am prepared to do all that I can to ensure that the residents of this district are all treated fairly, and will happily lobby with any of yous, the government of the day, no matter what colour it is, to get a full and fair settlement for local government. Local government is important and must be supported. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think we've had a really good budget debate tonight in the spirit of Braintree District Council and discussed issues. There's different opinions, and I'm particularly very pleased to follow on from Councillor Heath, because as he rightly said, the Labour Party fought the election last year, as did we, with a plan for the whole district. And whilst we may disagree on many things, the Labour Party have always had a long, dedicated record of service to the whole district in the interests of all residents. That is something we share and we agree with. And I'm afraid, Madam Chairman, service to this district isn't about picking one community against another. It isn't just trying to lever in small-term political advantage for your own particular community. It's taking a whole approach. And we acknowledge the Labour Party's role in that. Speaking to our budget this evening, the accusation of the administration was that somehow this is a corporate budget, just working on sort of the numbers. Well, I'm afraid the numbers really rather do underpin everything, because you can't do anything without sound finance. But actually, I'm very pleased, and I keep my old black and white copy here, we're actually getting on with delivering our plan, our manifesto for the whole district that saw the Conservative Party re-elected last year, one of the worst local election years for the Conservative Party in recent decades. And it's a coherent plan. Sound financial management, supporting communities and businesses, planning policies for the needs of residents across the whole district. It's very different, Madam Chairman, than putting a budget forward based on independent-minded platitudes, some sort of community initiative document, some sort of local government association catchphrase. Because, Madam Chairman, let's just reflect what you have when you have those sort of platitudes. And we see it in this county of Essex. You have the nonsense of fighting planning applications against Stansted Airport and wasting millions of pounds. You have the nonsense of telling district councillors to throw out their local plans, inflicting planning chaos on their districts. You have the absolute nonsense of local authorities opting out of Essex-wide waste strategy deals, costing huge amounts of money to all residents and not benefiting. So when they snide and when they have little digs about Fit for Future, I think in our budget setting process we need to reflect on the need for a coherent plan. And worst of all, Madam Chairman, when you have that type of mentality in your administration, in your budget, you wake up with the grotesque chaos of a local authority through administrative malpractice not being able to pick up their bins for all their residents. So, Madam Chairman, I support the budget fully, and we on this side will crack on as we have done in recent years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Ayton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is in relation to devolution in the budget. Now, obviously, I know this is being led on a county level, but as devolution has been put on pause until the next Parliament, what is the budget for devolution in the expenditure budget, as it hasn't been itemised? I mean, one would imagine money would be spent on feasibility and the like, but, you know, or is this administration simply waiting for the incoming Labour government to allot money in next year's grants?
Thank you. Councillor Toby Williams, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'm absolutely delighted to support the budget this evening. This is a budget which builds on this council's reputation for sound financial management, because over many, many years it has been this council which has taken very, very difficult decisions to produce consistently balanced budgets. And we're now seeing the products of this commitment to financial prudence come to fruition. As we've heard at a time when other councils are struggling to stave off bankruptcy, it's this council that is maintaining excellent services. It's this council which is helping the neediest through targeted support, including, of course, the Councillors' Community Grant Scheme, which has been so useful across my town of Witham. And we're not just helping, as we've heard, excellent services within the geographical boundaries of the Braintree district, but also next door in independently run Uttlesford, where BDC staff are helping to ensure that waste is collected on time. Could there be a more compelling reflection on a well-run and financially sensible council? I think not. And it's this sound financial management which means the council can now afford to invest in upgrades across our district, including, of course, in Witham. And the list of excellent projects coming down the line for Witham is virtually endless. Town centre improvements, a new community centre, new football pitches, improvements to Witham Town Park, a new changing places toilet in the town hall, new funding to fight crime. I could go on, but these are all projects which simply wouldn't be happening without this council's financial track record. So I am proud to support this budget. It builds on over a decade of effective local government and secures a strong foundation for the future of our district.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I don't have anyone else listed. Councillor Bowers, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Before Councillor Butland wraps up, I just wanted to make a couple of comments myself on tonight's debate, and just to maybe answer a couple of points myself in regards to my speech. It was taken on board what Councillor Steyn said earlier, and Councillor Abbott mentioned about this fit for the future, and in regards, nothing's come forward at the moment. We all know that there's a paper coming to, it's been on the decision plan for a while, it's coming to the March Cabinet about agreeing principles of the programme. the way we do things in this authority is through business plans, there's through robustness, there's through sound financial management for the whole district. And what we've got to bear in mind is the point about transformation is either we lead on this or it will be done to us. So we just need to make sure we're at the forefront of this. And if the opposition are not on board with that, then they're fine to have that mindset. Just to make the point in regards, because I'm the cabinet member responsible for asset management and assets, the point that Councillor Beavis was making, I just wanted to sort of, from my point of view, about asset strategy, saying about, we're putting the 1.2 million towards Causeway House, and we haven't even had an asset strategy. We have had an asset management review, which the results we had a little while ago, which will feed into the asset strategy. So it's not as if this is just we're starting from a blank bit of paper. In regards that there is a main programme on this, and this has been mentioned many times in regards when we are going to be looking at assets going forward. In regards whether we would look at offloading ones that maybe the net amount is not what we need to be and that kind of thing. So there is a lot of work that's been going on about that. And also I think from my point of view, the point I mainly sort of stood up to make is, and Councillor Heath has made it himself as well, in regards not just looking at assets and not just looking at empty homes, which are the points that I do agree with, but the thing about balancing your budget and using your reserves. And you can only use your reserves once, and that's not something that this authority would be mindful to do. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Councillor Abbott, stinging attack on me and Councillor Ethan Williams. I'd just like to remind him that this Conservative administration was re-elected with a resounding majority, and the Conservatives were elected in Whitton North. And one thing I would point out that was in my election leaflets is that voters clearly understood how the Green Party might spend money making heroin available on the NHS in prescriptions in their national manifesto, something that the public in Whitton North resoundingly rejected. One thing I was actually hoping for tonight, moving on to the budget, is the Green Party actually had an opportunity tonight to actually come up with a costed plan to make garden waste services free at the point of use. Lots of moaning, lots of criticism, but not one single plan to make the garden waste service free at the point of use. I made it very clear in the elections that I wanted to see garden waste services be collected free at the point of use, and I genuinely meant that, and that was in my literature. And when it came to Cabinet, I questioned Councillor Bowers on this very issue, and I couldn't find anywhere in budgets, I tried to turn over every stone, I couldn't find a way that we could to keep that free at the point of use. I failed, and I personally failed there. And the only way we could have generated that through council tax was, I think, a 9% increase, and that's unfeasible. We couldn't do that without a referendum. So I was actually hoping, not that I would necessarily link arms with the opposition, but I was looking to see if the Greens could come up with that, but it wasn't included. I didn't interrupt you in your speech, Madam Chairman. Local authorities have to present a balanced budget. That might seem like an easy task, but in these times, that's a rather difficult one. There's an inflationary storm, as we know, and local authorities have lost about £4 billion worth of funding, and since 2015, shire counties and district councils have lost 50% of its settlement funding. The House of Commons Library states that since 2015, £300 per head of population has been reduced to £150 per head of population. So we've seen a lot of money disappear. I think, on one hand, we can see that that's worked fairly well in the sense that we don't, you look at the Taxpayers Alliance, and there was once a time when they said, well, the public sector non-jobs, the waste, the fat in local government, that's largely disappeared. And I actually kind of agree, I meet halfway with Councillor Jeffrey's point about what's the threshold between the right level of funding. And I think we've probably reached that point where local government has lost its fat, but it's very quickly becoming anorexic. And I actually tend to agree that there needs to be an increase in funding in local governments. I do concur with members on the other side when it comes to that. In terms of medium-term financial strategy, a £2 million black hole, this council's responded particularly well. If we look at someone like Huntingdon, a local authority like Huntingdon, that's an £8.7 million MTFS in the 2027-2028 period. So I think when we benchmark ourselves against others, whether that's Conservative district councils or Green, Independent, Liberal Democrat councils, we're performing particularly well. Councillor Ritchie talked about Section 114 notices. There's been about 12 of those issued since 2018. We're not one of them. So despite all the inflationary pressures, a loss of central government funding, we're still one of the lowest council taxes in the whole of Essex, and I'm very proud to be supporting this budget, led by Councillor Graham Butland. So thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Abram.
That the government have cut monies to local authorities by 27%. Now, I've heard all people talking all about money. I've heard someone from Witham saying they've got this, they've got that, they've got that. It makes me worry, really. Is there anything left for anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abrams. Does anybody else wish to speak on this matter? Councillor Aiton.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, am I going to get a written response to my question?
Spoken.
I know, but am I going to get a written response? Because you didn't ask anyone on the other side.
Councillor Aiton, this is part of the debate process. There isn't a question and an automatic response to that question. But there doesn't have to be, Councillor Aiton. Thank you.
I think that members have had their opportunity to speak now, and I will invite Councillor Butland to close the debate as the proposer of the budget recommendations and council tax resolution. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I begin by addressing the remark of Councillor Aiton, because he's obviously getting a bit worried that he wasn't going to get a response. On the devolution, it has been the three upper tier authorities, that's Essex County Council, Southend City Council and Thurrock Borough Council, who have been the authorities that have been putting it forward, because it's an upper tier council thing, so there's not there. However, what I would say is that there is a lot of work going on locally across North Essex between all of the district, city and borough councils in working together with the as a group of North Essex councils, because I think we all recognise that actually, if we're to survive, we need to work together, we need to share scarce resources, etc. But hopefully that does answer his point on that. He makes a point about money from the government, and I appreciate that there is probably a fair age difference between myself and him, so perhaps I remember better 2010 and Liam Byrne leaving the Treasury by saying there is no money. So what I'm just saying, I don't want to be party political, but I think local government has suffered under all governments. And I don't think, and I've said this before in other chambers, I don't think we should be going, tucking our forelocks to any government. What we want is real local government. And that means huge devolution from central government, far less members of parliament, most of whom are the highest paid councillors in the country, and really actually putting power where it should be, here in local areas. So, sorry, I'm on my hobby horse on that, but I'm with you. We shouldn't just be talking about money. We want to have, in my view, we should be having local government. Picking up just very quickly some of the points, because I think there's not a huge deal of difference between the two sides on this budget, but some points have been raised. Councillor Staines talks about money being spent, we don't know what it is. Please look at the papers that will be published shortly for the Cabinet on the 4th of March, which will cover the business case for this and also Fit for the Future, etc. It is there, but we have to make provision in the budget, obviously ahead of time for that. Councillor Jeffers, I think I've made the point about local government and national government, and I accept her point. Councillor Abbott, I think, asked what percentage. It's 2.96 is the percentage increase as far as the district is concerned. Councillor Heath, I think I picked up basically on your point. I share your your views about local government and what we should be doing. And finally, Councillor Beavis, absolutely delighted to have the support of the Leader of the Opposition on this, and I suspect there'll be only one person more delighted than me for that, and that's Councillor Abraham, who last year was left as the only member on the opposition to vote in support of our budget. So I'm sure he's delighted that this year his own leader is now come round to his view. So, Madam Chairman, I have nothing further to add, and hope that there will be significant, if not unanimous, support for this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. The budget recommendations and council tax resolution as set out in the budget report, addendum report and council tax resolution report have been moved and seconded. We will now proceed to the recorded vote on this item. And I will now hand over to the Chief Executive, Dan Gascoigne, for the recorded vote.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott. Councillor Abram. Councillor Ayton. Councillor Ball. Councillor Beavis.
4.
Councillor Bond. 4. Councillor Bowers. 4. Councillor Bowers-Flint. 4. Councillor Butland. 4. Councillor Coleridge. 4. Councillor M. Cunningham. 4. Councillor T. Cunningham. 4. Councillor Dervish. 4. Councillor Diamond.
Abstain.
Councillor Edwards.
4.
Councillor Finken.
Abstain.
Councillor Garrod.
4.
Councillor Green.
Abstain.
Councillor Hayes.
4.
Councillor Heath.
Abstain.
Councillor Holland.
4.
Councillor Hooks.
4.
Councillor Jeffries.
Abstain.
Councillor Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Monday.
4.
Councillor Parker.
4.
Councillor Pell.
4.
Councillor Prime.
4.
Councillor Ramage.
4.
Councillor Ritchie.
4.
Councillor Swear.
4.
Councillor Spray.
4.
Councillor Staines.
Abstain.
Councillor Taylor.
Which one?
B. Taylor.
4.
Forgive me. Councillor W. Taylor.
4.
Councillor Thorogood. Councillor Van Dulken.
4.
Councillor Walters.
4.
Councillor E. Williams.
4.
Councillor T. Williams.
4.
Thank you, members. The result of the recorded vote is 429, against 0, abstentions 12. The recommendations and resolutions have been approved. Members, this item concludes the business for this evening. Thank you, members, for your attendance and participation at this evening's meeting, and to those watching on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of this meeting will be published on the Council's YouTube channel as soon as possible, and I will formally close this meeting of full Council at 21:12.